Hello, everyone. Unleashed is about telling the truth and about getting the word out about things that are uncomfortable to talk about in politics and culture. Obviously, the liberal media doesn't like when I speak out about various topics that don't align with their narrative. And I'm going to do that today on Unleashed. I want to show you a speech that I did a couple months ago at Charis Bible College about how important it is for people of faith to stand up and speak out, get their churches engaged, and vote their values. It couldn't be any more important than right now. Across the world, we're seeing attacks on people of faith. I know it's difficult to speak out, it's scary, but it's important. So I wanted to put this speech out there, provide some feedback. I'm going to speak more boldly and more often about the intersection of faith and politics and how important it was in the last year's election, but also how incredibly critical it's going to be headed into the presidential election in 2024. So let me know your feedback, provide comments, share this to your friends of faith, your pastors, and highly recommend getting the book Letter to the American Church by Eric Metaxas and taking a read and giving a copy to your pastor.
All right, if you can take your seats, we've just got about 10 more minutes before lunch, and this is actually an exciting opportunity right now because I want you to hear from the 2022 Republican nominee for governor in the state of Colorado, Heidi Ganahl. Now, Heidi has become a good friend, and I tell you what, she is a champion for righteousness and for God's purpose in government. It's been a pleasure getting to know her over the last year, and I believe that God has called her to leadership in this state, and that last year was just the beginning, actually. She has served as a regent in the Colorado Board of Regents and is an extremely accomplished entrepreneur. She founded the franchise called Bow Wow, which is the #1 pet care franchise in the country, right? And was named to Fortune 500's list of Entrepreneur of the Year and many, many other honors. And I want you to hear from Heidi this morning because I have hope not just for America, but for Colorado. And I believe that Heidi has unique insights and experience on Colorado that I want you guys to hear about. Heidi, why don't you come on up and share with us today?
Thanks, Richard. Yeah. Well, hello, everyone. Boy, you are a hard act to follow, Luke, but you teed up some great things for me. Thank you. And, you know, I just got off the governor's campaign for a couple of years. It was brutal. And I afterwards, I sat on the couch like, what just happened? Oh my gosh, that was crazy. And what happened to Colorado? It's unbelievable that they don't see what's happening to our beautiful state and voted the way they did. I also just finished my term as a regent at the University of Colorado, like Richard said. And boy, is that being on the front lines of the woke movement and in the belly of the beast. And one of my last act as a regent was one of my favorites, though. It was signing the contract for a new disciple in Boulder named Deion Sanders. My husband actually gave me a hard time when I walked out of the house today. He's like, really, you're wearing red the day before the Nebraska CU game? Are you kidding me? I'm like, yes. But honestly, it's been wonderful to see Deion talk about God, living in Boulder fearlessly, just giving thanks to God and just appreciating his role in Boulder to really move things and shake things up. So that's why I was excited about signing that contract. I was also excited about the football part, but honestly, I think he's going to do great things. And he's getting a place on the national stage now because he's doing a good job as a coach to talk about God and his relationship with God. So, one of the unexpected outcomes of running for governor last year was how much closer I grew to God. I met with pastors across the state of all denominations and all sizes of congregations. I visited close to 100 churches on various Sundays, encouraging them to speak out and vote their values. It was really a blessing. It was a blessing to be on the front lines and see what was happening, what things were starting to move in our churches, mostly thanks to Andrew Womack and Truth and Liberty and Richard and the work that they're doing. It was amazing. I so appreciate all of it. But I was reminded how powerful our faith can be when all seems lost. And America is lost right now. Colorado is lost right now. Our beautiful state has been labeled one of the least religious states in America. Only a third of Coloradans say that religion is important in their daily lives, and only about a third attend religious services every week. Can you imagine the difference in our elections if even a third of adults in Colorado voted our Christian values, if we honored the religion that we say we practice? 1 in 3 Christians nationally do not vote consistently. 1 in 3. To live out our Christian faith, we must participate in the political process. I recently read Eric Metaxas's book, Letter to the American Church, and in his writings, he talks about the haunting similarities between today's American church and the German church of the 1930s, like Luke was talking about. Specifically, the silence of the church as it faced attacks on all fronts. By choosing silence, German pastors facilitated the rise of Nazism, and the innocent blood of millions is on their hands. The current complicity of the American church, especially its pastors, leads to similar red-handed guilt, I would say. Those who ignore the lessons of history being condemned to repeat its mistakes. We see the history repeating itself right before our very eyes. And it's not too late. I hold the optimism that Luke does too. But the church has an obligation to speak out about evil, including government evil, and to resist the state when it's necessary. We are Christians, and we should speak out against the church when it has gotten too close to the state also, or when it turns its head to the evil that's going on. It's time for Christians to stand up, to enter the battle. War is being waged on our children, our lands, our future. I think back to the campaign, to a night when Danny, my lieutenant governor candidate, and I met a very influential Denver pastor and his wife for dinner. Very influential. They were open about their hesitation to support us, as they were traditionally staunch Democrats. However, they also weren't happy about Jared Polis. As dinner wrapped up, we had a feisty, good 2-hour conversation. I turned to the pastor's wife, who'd been mostly quiet during this time, and I asked for her thoughts. What she said shook me. She said it would be very difficult to support Danny and I, as she believed in a woman's right to have an abortion up until birth. This is one of the most influential pastors in the Denver area, his wife, saying this to me. It broke my heart. I still can't understand how she squares this with God, with her faith, especially as a leader in the community. We must always choose to be on the right side of God versus the right side of politics, even if we lose elections. And you know what? I know I'm not going to get much argument from this crowd. God bless you guys. But we have got to push back on this idea that we cannot talk about politics as Christians and pastors. That is not okay. And we heard over and over from churches and pastors all over Colorado that we couldn't come speak or they didn't want to meet. My previous pastor of over 10 years from one of the largest church communities in Colorado kept avoiding my messages and getting together during the governor's race. Every week he would preach about, fighting the woke culture and not sitting on the sidelines and to fight back on the attacks on our faith. But he couldn't even take the time to meet with me, to have coffee, to talk about how we could fight this battle together. And he influences tens of thousands of Christians in this state. The church plays such a critical role in the culture of our nation. Just America. It was founded on faith, right? But faith is not the priority that it was once, especially in Colorado. A Wall Street Journal poll out this summer showed that religion and patriotism, community, and having children has dropped dramatically in importance, while the importance of money and self has grown. Selfishness has become a value. If you don't have a relationship with God, country, or community, all you have left is you. How terribly sad for our children, for our society, and no wonder we're in such a mess. So back to history. What fatal mistakes did the German church make so that we can avoid them? Well, the German church failed to recognize that the world had changed and not for the better. They refused to see the change and act accordingly. You know, we don't necessarily face Nazis now, but we do face ideas and forces that are at war with God himself, right? All of them, Metaxas says, spring from a central source, atheistic Marxist ideology that are inescapably anti-God and anti-human. But churches must not, as Metaxas denounces, retreat to a focus on the gospel as though God has nothing to say about public evil. The Christian church was obligated to help any victims of the state, he wrote. If the state refused to change course and do the right thing, it was the solemn obligation of Christians to take action. They were not just supposed to protest verbally and to help the victims, but were also supposed to become active politically, to shove a stick in the spokes of the wheel of the rumbling machine of the state. I think that phrase nails it. And we do not have enough Christians and pastors volunteering for stick duty right now. But all of you are, right? Yes. Also, we are headed into the spiral of silence right now, a phenomenon that occurs when people see a culture slipping towards tyranny, but they refuse to speak. The longer people hesitate, the more the price of speaking rises. As the price rises, fewer people choose to speak, and the price of speaking rises again, and so on until a nation is silenced. Does this sound familiar? I saw it firsthand on the campaign trail. The longer pastors wait and Christians wait, the harder it becomes to say anything about the dangers and evils of what's happening. Schaefer Parker wrote a thoughtful review of Eric's call to action in the Western Standard. What then must we do? We must see the one who is truth as our standard or as our battle flag for truth. Then we are to rally to that battle flag, to Jesus himself. Is Metaxas really calling for us to think of ourselves as Christian soldiers, marching as to war? Yes, I think he is. What do you think? Yeah. We must learn to combine truth and love. We must move beyond creeds and statements of faith. We must speak the truth in love, not theoretically, but aimed at real situations, and always for Jesus' sake. So, silence is not an option for the faith community right now. It's why I got off the couch after getting my rear end kicked in the governor's race and thought, God is calling me to keep going, to move. He gave me this experience. Thank you. He gave me this experience and these connections and relationships so that I could continue to move Colorado forward and so that I could speak the truth and teach the truth about what I saw behind the scenes, and it was not pretty. In Colorado, abortion until a baby's birthday is celebrated. In Colorado, our schools are teaching children that parents are not to be trusted, that government is God, that sexual deviance is king. In Colorado, drugs are replacing faith. Suicide and addiction are skyrocketing, and we are moving farther and farther away from the one who works to heal brokenness, God. Christians have forgotten the power of our faith when we come together. If 64% of voters in Colorado are Christians, that's 2.8 million of 4.4 million registered voters. That number wins elections all day long, you guys. But we've got to show up. You got to check the box. And you also have to volunteer to be an election watcher, to poll watcher, all those things to make sure that our vote counts. Christians in Colorado have the power to single-handedly return our state to the beautiful place it was by just showing up and getting engaged and speaking out. So I'll conclude by asking you to act. Not just talk loudly, but act. Act first in our families. Instill biblical values in our kids and grandkids. Start schools in the churches. Get them out of the public schools. Get our kids off the screens and off social media. Be real and honest about the state of the world with our children. Tell them the truth. They can handle it. They were prepared for a time as this. Next, take the lead at your church. Take the lead in your community. Teach your congregations to register voters, to ballot harvest, to be poll watchers, to be election judges, to run for office. Speak fearlessly about politics with your family, your friends, and your pastor. Don't be shy. Now is not the moment. We have moved from a culture that affirmed and agreed with Christianity to one that is actively hostile to it. Things have changed, and so the church must change, but not in the way the woke left wants us to. We must stand strong. We must stand strong. We might look back and think, why did not more Christians speak out back then to stop Hitler? Well, look at our silence over the last few years as we were masked and locked down and told to shut up. Most people went along with all of it, even criticizing or canceling those of us who questioned it. Hello, Kyle Clark. John Hancock, the first signer of the Declaration of Independence, said, "Resistance to tyranny becomes the Christian and social duty of each individual. Continue steadfast and with a proper sense of your dependence on God. Nobly defend those rights which heaven gave, and no man ought to take from us. We are asleep, my friends. Wake up, get loud, run into that fire, hold that stick, and fear not, we have God on our side." Thank you. Thank you.